Some people think being in charge gives them the right to humiliate others. So when the CEO disguised himself as a quiet intern for a day, one manager couldn't resist showing his true colors. He mocked him, shoved him, and even poured hot coffee down his shirt, laughing as everyone watched. What he didn't know, the intern he just humiliated owned the building, the company, and the future of every person in that room. Before we continue, I just want to take this chance to say thank you. Your time, your support, your presence here, it means more than you know. If you're enjoying these stories and want more just like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and join our growing family. All right, let's continue. The day didn't look special from the outside. Just another Monday morning in the city, gray sky, traffic stacked in lines, people rushing with coffee cups and half-buttoned shirts, trying to outrun their own lateness. Altura Dynamics towered above most of the surrounding buildings, all glass and sharp edges. To people walking by, it looked impressive, successful, untouchable. But reputations have a way of looking better from the street than they do from the inside. Over the last few months, whispers had started to float up to the people at the very top, not about profits, not about clients, but about culture, about how people were treated, about managers who ruled by fear and humiliation instead of leadership. Most CEOs would have sent a memo. Some would have hired a consultant. Keanu chose a different route. He pulled a plain white shirt from the back of his wardrobe, the one that didn't fit quite right at the collar, found an old pair of black shoes that had seen better days, left the sleek suit hanging behind the door. And when he walked into Altura Dynamics that morning, nobody saw the man whose name was on half the legal paperwork of the building. They just saw an intern. His badge said it, printed cheap in bold black letters, Keanu, intern. The security guard at the lobby barely glanced up as he passed. The receptionist smiled the rehearsed smile she gave to everyone with a lower title. People rushed in around him, brushing past, checking their watches, muttering about deadlines. Keanu took it all in quietly, the tension, the rushed energy, the stiffness in people's shoulders. Places didn't feel like this when kindness flowed freely. He stepped into the elevator, surrounded by suits and silence. A junior analyst shifted to the side to make room, then apologized like she'd taken up too much space just breathing. He gave her a small nod. "You're fine," he said softly. She blinked, almost startled someone had answered her like a human being. The elevator doors opened on the 23rd floor, marketing. Noise hit him like a wave. Phones ringing, keyboards tapping, laughter in sharp little bursts, the smell of burnt coffee and stress. The interns had their own corner, a cluster of cheap desks with broken drawer handles and chairs that had seen one too many spins. A stack of reports sat waiting like punishment. A young woman looked up from one of those desks. She had her hair tied back in a way that said she hadn't had time to think about it. Sleeves rolled to the elbow, eyes tired but not dull. She had that look of someone who cared too much and slept too little. "You must be the new one," she said, pushing her glasses up. "Keanu, right?" He nodded. "That's me." "I'm Ava," she said. "Officially intern. Unofficially the person who fixes the printer, proofreads the stuff no one else wants to read, and gets blamed for things that were broken before I got here." There was humor in her voice, but it tasted bitter. Keanu smiled faintly. "Nice to meet you, Ava." She slid a stack of folders toward him. "You got assigned to Ellison's team, right?" "That's what they told me downstairs," he said. Her smile faded into something like pity. "Then, good luck." He raised an eyebrow. "That bad?" She glanced toward the glass-walled corner office, where a tall man in an expensive suit laughed too loudly into a phone. "Let's just say," Ava murmured, "he loves two things, power and an audience." As if on cue, the door to the office flew open. "Where's my intern?" the man barked. "Did HR send me another statue or an actual human being this time?" A few heads ducked, others pretended not to hear. Ava jerked her chin slightly. "That's him, Gary Ellison, Senior VP, legend in his own mind." Keanu stood. Gary's eyes landed on him. "New guy," Gary said, striding over. "Name?" "Keanu," he replied calmly. Gary smirked. Like the actor, cute. That'll make it easy to remember when I'm yelling at you. He didn't wait for a reply. You're with me today, Gary went on. You fetch, you carry, you staple, you don't talk unless spoken to. You see me carrying anything heavy. I help, Keanu offered. Gary laughed. No, you watch so you remember who's in charge. The people around them chuckled nervously. No one laughed like they thought it was funny. They laughed because that was safer. Gary clapped a hand on Keanu's shoulder a little harder than necessary. Let's start with coffee. The board's coming in early, and if they don't have caffeine, they start asking questions I don't want to answer. Ava winced sympathetically. The machine on 23 is broken, she whispered as he passed. You'll have to go down 2 floors. He gave her a grateful nod. Gary called after him, and don't take half an hour. This isn't a sightseeing tour. The coffee shop on 21 felt like another world, softer lighting, the low hum of music, the faint smell of pastries. The guy behind the counter smiled like he meant it. How can I help you? Keanu read the sticky note Ava had scribbled. 6 black, 2 oat lattes, 1 cappuccino, 1 caramel triple shot thing with whipped cream and extra drizzle. The barista laughed. Ellison's order. Keanu tilted his head. You know him. Everyone knows him, the barista said. He's the only guy who can make a drink order sound like an insult. He handed over the tray a few minutes later, 10 cups, dangerously full. Careful on the turns, he warned. Keanu smiled wryly. I'll do my best. He took the elevator back up, tray balanced carefully, mentally noting every movement around him. The interns clustered by the door, bracing themselves for whatever show would come next. Jason, head of security, leaned casually against a column, eyes taking in everything. As Keanu rounded the corner toward the glass conference room, he heard it, the subtle shift in tone. Laughter. Not the easy kind. The sharp kind. Gary stood at the front of the room, sleeves rolled, tie loosened, acting like he didn't need the board's approval. The junior staff lined the back wall, trying to look smaller than they were. The moment Keanu stepped through the doorway, Gary threw his arms wide. There he is, he announced. Our new intern took you long enough. Keanu checked his watch, 7 minutes. Apologies, he said quietly. The machine downstairs. Oh, I'm sure it's not your fault, Gary cut in loudly. You're new, you don't know how things work yet. His smile said otherwise. Keanu set the tray gently on the table. Coffee for everyone, he said. Not everyone, Gary replied. Start with me. Keanu handed him a cup. Gary didn't take it. He stared at Keanu instead, head tilted as if studying an insect. Question, Gary said to the room, loud enough for everyone to hear. What's the #1 rule on this floor about presentations? Silence. An assistant fumbled with her pen. Presentation, Gary said, pacing like he was on a stage, is everything. You dress sharp, talk sharp, move sharp, you don't slouch, you don't whisper, you don't look like you slept in your shirt. Someone snorted softly. Keanu stood still, calm. Gary took the cup of coffee from his hand, held it up like a prop. You see this, he said. This is how you start a day right, hot, strong, on time, and not. He stopped. His gaze dropped deliberately to Keanu's shoes. Sloppy. Before anyone could process what he was doing, Gary turned the cup. And slowly, deliberately, poured the steaming coffee down Keanu's shirt. The liquid soaked into the thin fabric, rolling down his chest, dripping off his belt onto the carpet. A sharp gasp rippled through the room. One of the junior marketers lifted a hand to her mouth. Oops, Gary said, making an overdone face. Look at that. Guess the intern doesn't understand balance. No one laughed, not really. But some did that thing people do when they're afraid. They half smiled, looking at the floor. Keanu closed his eyes for half a second. The heat bit into his skin. Pain flickered, real, physical, but he didn't move. No flinch, no curse, no grabbing for napkins. He just breathed. Then he opened his eyes, looked Gary in the face and said quietly, Are you all right, sir? Didn't mean to cause trouble. Something in Gary twitched at that, the calmness, the lack of reaction. He covered it with a laugh. Look at that, Gary said, turning to the board members at the table. Takes a bath and apologizes. That's commitment. The board members didn't look impressed. One of them, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes, watched Keanu closely. Out in the hallway, Ava had come to a stop, a stack of reports in her arms. Through the glass, she saw everything. Her face went pale. Jason, leaning at his usual spot, watched too, jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. Inside, someone finally spoke. "Do you want a towel or something?" a junior analyst mumbled. Gary waved him off. "He's fine, aren't you, intern?" Keanu glanced at the man, then back at Gary. "I'll manage," he said. He turned to leave. As he walked past Ava, she whispered, "Are you okay?" He gave her a small nod. "I've had worse." It wasn't bravado, it was simple fact. She looked at the spreading stain on his shirt and felt something twist in her chest. Anger, shame, helplessness. "He shouldn't have done that," she said quietly. Keanu's eyes softened. "No," he agreed, "he shouldn't have." Jason stepped in as Keanu approached. "You need a change of clothes," Jason said. "I'll be fine," Keanu replied. Jason's gaze flicked to the conference room, where Gary was still performing. "They shouldn't get away with this," Jason muttered. Keanu's expression didn't harden, it didn't soften either, it just settled. "That's why I'm here," he said. Jason frowned slightly, studying him. There was something in that answer that didn't match the badge on his chest. Before he could ask more, a voice echoed down the corridor. "Can I have everyone from marketing and executive relations in the main boardroom, please?" The PA system crackled. "Immediate attendance required." Ava stiffened. "That's weird," she said. "They never call everyone like that." Jason's radio buzzed at the same time. He lifted it to his ear, listening. "Copy that," he said. "On my way." He looked at Keanu. "You'd better come too, intern." Keanu nodded. He slipped off the now ruined shirt, pulling on the spare one Jason handed him, a simple, dark button-up. No brand, no flash. Somehow, it made him look more like himself. As they headed toward the main boardroom, employees filed out of offices and cubicles, murmuring to each other. "Did you hear about the coffee thing?" "Yeah, brutal." That intern just stood there. "Ellison's going to eat him alive at the review." At the far end of the floor, Gary strutted out of the glass conference room like a man who had already won whatever game he thought he was playing. "Everybody to the boardroom," he called, clapping. "Let's make this quick, people. Some of us have real work to do." Ava fell into step beside Keanu. "I hate this," she whispered. "What?" he asked. "Feeling like I'm about to watch something bad happen and not being able to stop it." Keanu glanced at her. "You don't like watching people get hurt." "Do you?" she shot back. A small, tired smile touched his lips. "Not anymore." They reached the boardroom doors. Through the frosted glass, they could see shadows, several figures already seated, their outlines too composed to be regular staff. "Who are they?" Ava murmured. "Board members," Jason answered quietly from behind them. "And legal, something's up." Gary didn't look worried. He looked excited. "Relax, people," he said, slipping his hands into his pockets. "Probably another merger announcement. Maybe we'll finally get a CEO who knows how to listen to the real talent." He straightened his tie, then glanced sideways at Keanu. "Intern," he said smugly, "try not to spill anything this time, yeah?" Keanu didn't answer. He just looked at the door. Because on the other side of that wood and glass were people who knew his real name, on papers, on contracts, on deeds. He wasn't an intern to them. He was the man who signed their checks. Ava nudged him gently. "You okay?" He nodded once. "Yeah." The boardroom door swung open. Everyone stepped inside. And as Keanu crossed the threshold, something subtle but irreversible shifted in the room, something Gary didn't notice until it was far too late. Because sitting at the head of the table, with a folder of documents and a calm, knowing smile, was the lawyer who'd helped Keanu buy this entire company. And when her eyes lifted and landed on him, she didn't see an intern. She saw the owner. "Ah," she said, "Mr. Reeves, glad you could join us." Every head in the room turned. Gary's face drained of color. And for the first time all day, the room knew. The wrong man had been humiliated.